Welcome to episode 4 of the Prospectus series, where we're going to look at conservation. So in terms of initially, what is the field of conservation? Now, conservation is both the in situ or in the environment conserving of a resource. So that can be a plant, it can be an animal, it can be a given piece of that animal's environment or habitat as a whole. So which means you're helping to preserve and sustain that environment for a long-term future, and looking at how to work with those specimens in the field and making sure that the various interconnecting factors and stimulus and the animals and species that are there are sustained for the next generation. So looking at how that flora and fauna can be maintained. If you want to excel in this field, this has got to be someone who is thinking about the environmental pressures of those living things in that environment, as well as thinking, well, how do I work with the stakeholders who live here, the people who've got an interest in this habitat and community? How do I work with them? Those are skills that you've got to practice. Whereas those who work in an ex situ environment or a setting outside of that plant and animal's natural environment, those of you who are going to look at working in zoos, your values should really be shaped here with looking at having a backup population. It's all about sustaining that species, that specimen, to be able to be reintroduced back into that environment at a later point, or preserving their genetic makeup and integrity going forward. So it's looking at how you can sustain that animal plant in a captive environment, how you can educate people with that plant and animal, and how you can further study and gain experience from that animal or plant. Now, a slightly different take on in terms of skill building, I want you to think about, why do you want to work in conservation? That's the first thing that you've got to be thinking about when you're going into this field. What do you want to do it for? Is it about education for you, or is it about saving a particular species? Do you want to work with different cultures and you want to travel, or are you setting yourself a goal of trying to save the planet or have a difference, making a difference with with the planet with your time? And then after you've got that answer, it's all about how do you want to achieve that? Do you want to work with different people where you're educating them, training them, shaping them? Or do you want to travel and research problems and come up with a solution that you can share with other people and then action these solutions globally? Or do you want to work with the animals in a home environment, such as educating people when working for a zoo or a charity, and you're promoting that animal's life in the wild? Or do you want to do a combination of these things and really influence people and influence the training of the next generation, shaping their understanding of what it means to be on this planet and what it means to live and work in these habitats? Now, if you're a practical learner, so a learner who really wants to work hands-on with these animals and is focused on going a practical route, I want you to think about looking at internships, all these environments or work experience that can really shape your practical understanding of the world and of your own career. So look at conservation organisations like the RSPB, Royal Society for Protection of Birds, WWF, and even if you start on the low rung of that ladder, you're thinking about moving up and helping to make a difference by progressing in your career. So how do you do this? So a lot of the times in this role, you still have to grow and change and learn. So learn how to use specific tools and get qualified on those tools for that job. Develop yourself by going on short courses or seminars and learning more about the advancements in your field. Now, instead, for the university, top pick for the university route is Ecology and Conservation at Lancaster University, which is a BSc. Their year one has embedded fieldwork elements linked to it. So it's all about gaining practical experience and connecting that with the critical observation and accurate recordings of different plants, different inverts, different birds, species specifically, which they're focusing on, but as well as other species, and learning about the intricacies of them. You'll learn about this in their field studies on the Spanish Donana field course, and looking at broadening the range of your modules and connecting field work, lab work, and then wider study like aquatic ecology or how taxonomy might allow you to better understand why the animal has evolved, been shaped, and been changed by its environment, and how you need to maintain that environment to allow it to do that. But equally, looking at the environment, looking at the challenges that are presented in that environment for that animal and the ecological ranges of that animal and how to maintain the animal going forward and reintroducing it. In year 2, you're looking more at establishing yourself in the field. So building upon field studies, it's all very much looking at research methods, experimental design, how to analyze conservation research. So it's all about using your modules to give you an insight on how to shape wider research projects, helping potential businesses grow, and how these businesses work in careers which shape conservation going forward, and how you're really reinventing the conservation sector, or even small projects, how you're going to really impact and have a difference in your field of study. Now, year 3 is where you do your honours research project or your dissertation. So the different thing that Lancaster University does here is they give you the opportunity to link your research project to an external corporation, project, or entity who's interested in that research, and gives you more substance by linking those two together. Now, the other university is conservation with forestry degree, so BSc at Bangor University. Now, in their year 1, it's focusing more on linking conservation to forestry environments, which is the main focus of their degree at one specific environmental niche. Now, when you're looking at these environments, you need to start learning about the forest, learning about forestry techniques, how different people who work in that service sector interact in that environment, and what effect, or both positive and negative, they do in that setting, and equally how these people who are offering a service, how they can best support and allow that ecosystem to thrive and to function. Now, there are also modules here which build on your research skills and develop you as an academic, but also field study, which is looking more specifically at Snowdonia as their field site. And in year 2, they take this experience that you've learned in initial field studies and look at conservation in forestry and conservation practices globally. So looking at how these two very different but interconnecting modules, one's very specific, one very broad, can give you a broad skill set to look at reintroducing an animal to that environment, or reintroducing a plant and conserving that environment, or sustaining that animal long term. So that's why you do silviculture, which is the inventory, cataloguing and maintenance of plant life, specifically trees, learning about how you're going to sustain that plant and reintroduce a plant, as well as reintroducing more complex animal species and animal life to that environment as well. So the animal side more comes from your conservation focused modules such as principles of conservation and conservation in practice. Year 3 is a placement year, a year in industry where you develop your skills with a business or charity. Year 4, looking at how you can bring together your understanding of the forestry sector and applying this to stakeholders and stakeholder knowledge, and looking at the surrounding ecosystems and how to apply your knowledge to supporting those ecosystems in the forests, in various types of forest environment. Now, last degree is conservation with conservation biology and ecology at the University of Exeter. Year 1 looks more at the underpinning biological sides of conservation, so really looking at the taxonomy side similar to zoology, but looking at the evolution and genetics of the animal and the plant life, looking at how it's been shaped, looking at how it's developed, and then it looks at the ecology and conservation in terms of how they can broaden your soft skills, your hard skills, looking at career development in those fields, what you need to succeed and how to best allow you to succeed. Now, year 2 looks more at fieldwork in a very, very detailed way, giving you various opportunities to explore different communities around the globe, So these range from Cyprus to Sicily, the Pyrenees mountain range to Pembrokeshire and Wales, Scotland, and also looking at Switzerland. Again, very different environments, and looking at how you can link all that together with various other field work opportunities. But as well, they look at exploration of the sea, the ocean environment, the Mediterranean, particularly as a site to look at, and looking at how you link that to theory modules such as population ecology, community ecology, and understanding how these relationships between practical and theoretical can be applied to why the animal does that and what you've seen the animal is doing, and looking at how you can explore these and link these together. Now, the year 3 really looks at a different way of approaching the research project. So again, theirs is looking at field trials and giving you the opportunity to take your field trial and really shape that field trial experience, where you can go to multiple sites potentially and explore your research idea in one country or one region and move it to another country, another region, and give yourself some more variables to potentially compare and contrast in terms of what is going on with that species or with that environment globally, not just in one area. Now, in terms of moving on to further skill development, I want you to think about what your field of study is that you want to pursue, and look at the skills of the people in that environment. What are they doing? What skills have they got? What skills stand out to you? Marine studies. You might need to be a certified diver or learn how to sail, for example. If you are looking at the forestry side, are you looking at tree surgery? Are you looking at horticulture for plants? Now, finally, I want you to welcome our word from a conservation graduate, who is Philip Charles. He's the owner and founder of the Spirit of Suffolk, which is a wildlife touring and conservation business in Suffolk, and looking at specifically at various wildlife that we have available to us here, and giving people the opportunity to get to see them and get to explore our local area.
Hi, Phil here from Spirit of Suffolk. Just here to talk to you briefly about some conservation. And Vanessa mentioned the best things about working in conservation, and for me that's making a difference and creating understanding. Working in conservation, you are making a difference to people and to animals and to habitats and ecosystems, and you can really feel that. But also creating understanding that you can share, whether it's through scientific research, whether it's through Facebook or Instagram, or talking to your friends and your family. Spreading some of that good work and spreading some of that knowledge is really, really important to help animals and species survive. Some of the hardest things about working in conservation, I think, is changing opinion. So, you're going into an area, you might not necessarily be from there, and you've got to work with landowners and with stakeholders, and it's really important to use the word with, not against. If you go into conservation and you're working against people, you're going to constantly have those barriers. It's about finding mutual ground, mutual understanding about how best to move forward. I've got examples. I've worked with tigers in India. I've worked protecting toads in Greece, and I spent years working with bears in Canada. And in all of those examples, it was about working in community conservation, so working with the people and the animals together, and that's how you find success. So it can be quite difficult finding that mutual ground, but it's really, really important. Why did I get into conservation? Well, personally, I've always loved animals, both in the wild and pets, etc. But I've always kind of carried the guilt of what humans have done to the planet and continue to do, whether it's through resource extraction, whether it's through overfishing, whether it's through hunting, whether it's through destroying habitat, whether it's through pollution. We are having an incredibly negative impact on animals and ecosystems, and I feel guilty for that. Not that it's me personally doing that to the animals, but if I can make even a little bit of difference to a species or even an individual animal, then that's what I want to do. And working together, like I said, with people in areas, you can really make a difference, not just to individual species, but to entire habitats and entire ecosystems, not just for today, not just for me, but for many, many, many generations of people and animals to come.
And thank you for listening. The next video will be up on Thursday at 3 o'clock, and that will be looking at the veterinary support degrees, so specifically veterinary physiotherapy to start with, and then we'll move through the degrees. Thank you for listening.